All right, everybody, we are going to go ahead and get started here. Welcome to today's presentation. We will be speaking about Alaro City, a planned city in Lagos, Nigeria. We'll be hearing from some experts in the field here. But before we get started, a bit of housekeeping. This is a Zoom webinar. So attendees, you'll see on your bottom Zoom toolbar, you'll see a Q&A button. If you have any questions during the presentation, as our speakers are going through their presentations, go ahead and click that Q&A button and you can type in any questions you have for them, and we'll answer all those questions at the end of the presentation. So keep that in mind, and we'll go ahead and get started here, and I'll introduce your hosts for today's webinar, Teresa Mueller and Ahmed Badat.
Hello, everyone. This is Teresa Mueller. I am the chair for CGBN, and we have a monthly webinar with different hot topics in commercial real estate all over the globe. So thankful that everyone can make it today. First, I'm going to have Ahmed give a little bit of a word, and he's going to introduce our first presenter. Ahmed?
Thank you, Teresa. Good morning, everyone. Ahmed Badat, the NICAR Global Ambassador to Ghana, Nigeria, and South Africa. Thank you, everyone, for participating and attending today. The first person I'd like to introduce is Alejandro Escudero, who is the National Association of Realtors Director of Global Strategy and Engagement. Those of you not familiar, NAR, which stands for National Association of Realtors, is the largest trade group in the United States and probably in the world, with 1.5 million members, with our membership globally in about over 82 countries, over 100 associations. So, Alex, it's all yours. Go ahead, my brother.
Thank you so much, Ahmed, for the introduction, and thanks to you and also to Teresa Mueller for the invitation. It's a great pleasure to be here. Like Ahmed, you were saying, I'm the director of global strategy for NAR. As part of the different duties that I oversee with this role. I don't know how many of you are familiar with NAR Global, but we do oversee the relationships, the bilateral relationships with over 100 partners in 76 countries. I am extremely happy and glad that NICAR, in this case, along with the Commercial Global Business Network and other associations and entities involved, are able to bring so much value through these presentations to our audiences. At NAR Global, we are all about letting people know about the different opportunities and opening their eyes about the global real estate field. And I really wanted to congratulate you guys on putting together these extremely useful and informational panels that you've been doing, focusing on global. I have to say, I'm not surprised having people like your two moderators here. I know they're very, very globally minded. And I wanted to acknowledge the fact that Ahmed Badat, one of your moderators today, is one of our fellow global ambassadors of NAR, as he said, to Nigeria, Ghana, and South Africa. He was our global ambassador of the year last year in 2021. There's good reasons for that, as you probably know if you've had the pleasure of meeting him in person. And I could not be happier as well to see our Nigerian counterparts from the Association of State Agents in Nigeria, who we signed with a little over a year ago, be engaged here. This is all about a global community. This is all about being part of the same realtor family, and I could not be happier to be here. So thanks again for the introduction, and definitely look forward to hearing what our awesome speakers are going to talk about today. Thanks again.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you for taking time out. Our next speaker is Mr. Benga Ismail, who is one of the key folks who made it possible between NAR and the Association of Estate Agents of Nigeria. He wears many hats, has been a great partner. Every time we've called upon him, Benga has been a great participant. Also represents the Lagos Chamber of Commerce. Benga, you want to unmute and start the video? It's all yours, sir.
Thank you very much, Ahmed. And hello, Alex and Theresa, and all the members of NICAR. I hope you can hear me. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can
Great.
hear you. Your video is not there anymore, but that's fine.
Okay, I'll put the video, and I thought we were going to put that up. Yes. Okay. So again, it's a very. I always feel very special when I'm invited to NICAR to speak. I feel I'm part of the family now, especially having attended so many programs of NICAR. So today again, I feel wonderfully happy to be part of this event, and again, especially as you are going to be listening to one of the special projects taking place in Nigeria. Fundamentally, we're here to listen to the Alaro project, which has been sponsored by a company, a global company, and have found Africa a home and have developed so many things in the different parts of Africa. So I'm really looking forward to hearing what they're doing and their plans for Nigeria especially, and other parts of Africa, so that those in America and also the NICAR family can understand what the big potential there is in Africa. So that's it for me. As it has been introduced, my name is Benga Ismail. I do represent the Association of Estate Agents of Nigeria, a bilateral partner of NICAR here in Nigeria. I'm also a vice president of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce in Nigeria, and the Chamber of Commerce here, it's about over 100 years old. I think about 118 years, if my calculation is correct, and I've been driving business, driving advocacy for a lot of business sectors in Nigeria. I also chair the real estate group of the Chamber of Commerce, and again, it's one of the areas I would also introduce to the global world and the larger business that goes on in Nigeria, and particularly Lagos. So I am pleased, and I hope, as we have been introducing Nigeria every time we come into interaction with the NICAR family and NICAR, that you get closer and closer to Nigeria and Africa. And sooner or later, we will have an in-person event in Nigeria, in Lagos, and take you around all those projects that we have introduced to you over the past 1 year. So thank you very much. And again, thank you wonderfully for inviting myself and also the Alaro group to present their projects to you. Thank you very much, Ahmed.
Thank you, Benga. And I gotta mention a name. So Ms. Adedoyin Rosaline Amangbo, I'd like to thank her for bringing Alaro City to our attention. And we think, it's unfortunate that I couldn't add her at the later stage onto this panel because we already had so many people on. So thank you. And we will be talking later during the question and answer time. Thank you, Teresa.
Thank you very much, Ahmed and Benga. So again, I'm Teresa Mueller. I am the chair for this Commercial Global Business Network, also owning managing broker of Trillium Real Estate out of Chicagoland area. This is a monthly session that we have. This is a recorded session that you can access later on YouTube. The networking session will not be, but just as a reminder, the format, we will have the next two presenters. You can submit your questions in the Q&A session, and I will ask those questions after they're done. And when we've wrapped up, we will open up the screen for everyone to join to have a networking session where we ask everyone to share one commercial real estate need or want. And if you don't have that, and or if you are not practicing commercial, or if you don't practice commercial real estate and you want to have more information, say that. So happy to help however I can. And then also, you could put your contact information in the chat, and then at the end, you can download the chat so you have everyone's contact information in there. So feel free to ask me questions in the Q&A and I will answer best I can, whether it's live or after the presentation. So without further ado, our first presenter is Yomi Amusa, and he is going to start sharing his slides. Thank you very much for joining us.
Yes, good. Well, good morning on your end, on that side of town, and good evening on the side of town. Here in Lagos, Nigeria, it's a couple of minutes past 4, but I guess on that side is about 10 a.m. or a few minutes past. So good morning and good evening at the same time to all our different participants. And firstly, just want to say a very big thank you to all the organizations that have collaborated to bring this event to life, and we really are excited at the opportunity to be here. Also alongside our long-term partners in the persons of SOM represented here as well, who will be speaking after me. So on the basis, or in the interest of time, I'll just run through a very short presentation that just speaks to you about Alaro City. And you know, for also just want to give credit to Mr. Benga Ismail, in this part, is very well respected and a very major stakeholder and player in our ecosystem and even in Alaro City. So it's really a pleasure to be sharing this this platform with him as well. My name is Yomi Amusa. I head marketing here in Alaro City, Lagos, Nigeria. And just to get it started, Alaro City is a member of the Rendeavor Group, and the Rendeavor Group is a global real estate company, which, for lack of a better way to put it, the way we describe ourselves, and I think it's right to say, is we're the largest urban city developers across Africa. And I'll speak to that in a couple of minutes. I'll just run you through a presentation that will touch on a bit about us, a bit about the Rendeavor Group on the larger scale, and then you just track into Alaro City, speaking to what makes Alaro City what it is and the immense value that we're able to deliver as Alaro City, both to our industrial clients and as well as our residential clients. And thereafter, I guess we'll just hand over to Garrett and pick it up from there. To get it started, Alaro City, as I said, is one of the member projects of the Rendeavor Group. And it's a joint venture between ourselves, as the Rendeavor Group and the Lagos State government, which is the largest, for lack of a better way to put it, the most forward-thinking state government in Nigeria. It has one of the highest populations, and it's also the commercial nerve center of the country. And Alaro City is situated in Lagos, Nigeria, precisely in the Lekki Free Zone, which, as it connotes, is a free zone and an economic zone within the what designated and powered by the Lagos State government with the support of the federal government to ensure that all the benefits of a free zone, as we would understand them both globally and locally, are made available to residents of Lagos State. And in doing that, Alaro City is a planned 2,000 hectare urban project development. And I think when we talk about the planning and give a sense of how well planned it is, I guess I'll leave that to Garrett and my colleagues from SOM to really give you context as to what we mean when we say it's a very, very well planned city. And in saying that it's master planned is with the intent that it is a city that in itself is in a class of its own, and standing shoulder to shoulder with some of the greater city centers of the world. And that's the intent and that's the ambition for Alaro City. It's going to be home to offices, logistics and warehousing, homes, schools, health facilities. It's literally a city within a city in every sense, and it's looking to cater to every walk of life, every facet of industry, and live, work, play, as the case may be. Already, and I'll speak to that as we go further into this, the city is in a very advanced stage of development, and we already have quite a number of off-takers who have already purchased and bought into Alaro City, are building and developing their businesses, and even from a residential point of view in Alaro City. It's also important to mention, and I'll touch on that as we go further down, that Alaro is also very well situated in proximity to a lot of key drivers of the overarching ambitions of the Lekki Free Zone, the free trade zone here in Lagos State, one of which is the deep sea port, the Lekki Deep Sea Port, which is the largest deep sea port in West Africa. And it's scheduled to actually be commissioned in Q3 of this year. And the first ship is set to berth in 2022, Q4 2022. Alaro City is in terms of proximity, is quite proximate to the seaport, and is set up to be a very key critical hub for logistics businesses and opportunities, all of which will be coming through the seaport. And obviously, a lot of what is coming into the seaport the intent to be to distribute across Nigeria, Alaro City being a very key factor and player along those lines. There's also Alaro City is also adjacent to what is the intended new commercial airport. It's going to start off as a cargo airport, but over the next couple of years will become a full-blown commercial airport in the Ekpe axis as well. All of which would give a sense as to how well positioned we are from a logistics point of view, be it from an air freight point of view, from the seaport on the other in the other axis. Alaro City is very well positioned. And we are generally, as I said earlier, we are generally positioned to really support and drive industry and commerce as it has to do with the Lekki Free Zone. Moving very quickly, I'd spoken to the fact that we're a member of the Rendeavor Group. And the Rendeavor Group, as I said, is the largest urban city developer across Africa, and with a lot of pride because it's actually 100% accurate. With a total portfolio of about 12,000 hectares across 7 projects cutting across 5 countries of the continent. We are in every sense the largest. We have operations and projects in Kenya. In this case, Tatu City, which is about 2,000 hectares, is one of our key model cities. Kofinaf as well, which is also in Kenya as well. We have in Zambia, in precisely in the Lumbashi region of Zambia, we have Roma Park. It's one of our smallest, but it's a very well advanced projects within our portfolio with about 120 hectares. And in itself bears the same model of a live, work, play environment, a mix of residential, commercial, and industrial residents in that city. We also have Kiswishi in the Democratic Republic of Congo, one of our largest in terms of landmass, about 4,400 hectares. And in Ghana, neighboring Ghana, we have 2 projects as well, King City with about 1,000 hectares and Apollonia City with another 1,000. Here in Lagos, Nigeria, we have Alaro City, which we're familiar with, but we also, which is, as I said, is a planned 2,000 hectare development. But also in Nigeria, precisely in the state capital called Abuja, we also have another project called Jigna, which is about 760 hectares. Similar model, but it's predominantly a residential project. And this just gives you a sense of the scale. And obviously, we're not yet done on any level, but this just gives you a sense of the scale of Rendeavor, our parent company that we're part of, and we're excited and proud to be part of. In terms of just to also give you a sense of our shareholding, I just give you a sense of how well run an organization we are and how well committed we are to our goals and ambitions. We have a very solid shareholding structure led by our founder and CEO in the person of Mr. Stephen Jennings, very well known across industries. When I say across industries and across continents, very cut his teeth in the finance ecosystem with with a company called Renaissance Capital. We started off in Russia and very quickly spread across multiple markets and quite a number here in Africa, Nigeria as well, and is a seasoned investor and is our founder and CEO. We also have Mr. Frank Mosier, who is also the chairman of Alaro City, also one of the lead investors in Rendeavor. We also have Lord Ashcroft, who was previously was a member of the House of Lords, also a very key investor in Alaro City and the Rendeavor as a whole. We also have Mr. Simon Edwards, also a director and investor. We also have Mr. Yomi Ademola, who happens to be my namesake, who doubles as a country head as well as managing director of Alaro City on the board. And we have Mr. Torsten Hagen as well on our board. And this just gives you a sense and context as to the fact that we are very well represented, very well funded, and we have a very integrated board and system. I'd also mention that is a private public-private sector partnership with the Lagos State government. We also have representation of from that point as well on the Alaro City board as well. Just to speak to a couple of our projects, I've spoken to Roma Park in Lusaka, Zambia, and what we tend to generally do is we tend to look for land, in this case, being preferably land that is preferably designated as special economic zones, primarily because we want to be able to deliver additional value to off-takers of our properties and of our projects and developments. And that is somewhat the model that we have tried to employ across board. What we have been able to show in certain instances is the space and the rate of development that has cut across most of our projects. I'll just scan through this really quickly. In the interest of time, we have our project in Tatu City, Nairobi, Kenya. I'd spoken to that as well. As a coffee plantation, actually, one of the largest, and interestingly, it's a coffee plantation which we still own in the form of Coffee-Naf, and we're one of the largest coffee producers out of East Africa, both producers and exporters out of East Africa. But that's the story for another day, which we're very proud of as well. And in terms of the state of infrastructure and development, it's group wide. There are standards that we're very well committed to, and we've been able to replicate across all our projects. Also, just to show you a bit around Apollonia City in Accra, Ghana. And these are just a few. Obviously, as I said, we have a total of 7 projects cutting across 5 countries and many more in the near future. But this is just to give you a sense of how far we've gone and how we continue to move. Coming into Alaro City, it's important to speak to just a bit about the free zone. Now, for those of us who are not so familiar with what the free zone is, these are literally economic engines by most countries, not all countries, in which they designate portions of their landmass, geographical landscape, to designate them as free zones or special economic zones, which attract special economic benefits, rebates. Probably one of the closest I can use in this case is probably what Delaware represents to a lot of organizations and corporates in America. Basically, how in itself it has a special tax regime and quite a number of other additional regimes that generally aid business, the ease of doing business, as the case may be. And we are situated in the free zone, and I've spoken to the fact that earlier that we are sort of a very well positioned with a lot of the infrastructure and a lot of the supporting ecosystem that literally is driving the growth and the development of the free zone. I'd mentioned earlier about the seaport, which if you can see in just a map, just at the bottom left, or I guess your left, my right, the bottom left corner, there's the seaport, which I've spoken about in terms of the Lekki Deep Sea Port, the largest deep sea port in West Africa, and I've spoken about. In the red box just here, that is literally Alaro City and gives you a sense of how the distance, which is just approximately about just under 15 kilometers from Alaro City. I've spoken to the new airport, which is just on this quadrant. I guess we'll share the slides also with all participants, so you can take the time to really interact and look at a couple of these things. Also in terms of the road networks and infrastructure that is already being deployed in and around Alaro City is next to none. And that's just to ensure that obviously in preparation for the seaport and a lot of the economic activity that will be happening in and around the free zone, that is this support infrastructure to ensure that it is seamless as the case may be. Also, I'd spoken to a couple of the value drivers previously. I talked about the proposed international airport, which I'd spoken about, which is literally adjacent to Alaro City. I'd spoken about the Lekki Deep Sea Port already, which I'd mentioned would be commissioned in Q3 2022. Interestingly, we had the president, the president in the person of General Muhammadu Buhari, who was actually at the Lekki Deep Sea Port a couple of days ago to inspect the level of progress on that deep sea port, and it's well on the way and on track to be commissioned in Q3, as I mentioned as well. Also in the same axis, we also have Dangote, but just to give a bit of context, there's a bit of we're in what we call the northern quadrant of the Lekki free trade zone, and this is the southern quadrant. The southern quadrant is designated as more of the heavy industrial free zone. And what that is basically, it warehouses your heavy industry with higher emission levels and rates. But in the northern quadrant, it's sort of designated more as the logistics light industry quadrant of the free zone, which is where we're designated. But just to emphasize the fact that there's a lot of synergy between both quadrants, and where Dangote is resident in this quadrant. I speak to Dangote because I guess it's a bit of a familiar name, probably even on your side, but also the richest Black man in Africa at the moment. It's also important to mention that he's building one of the largest privately owned refineries here in Lagos, Nigeria, in the Lekki Free Zone, which will also be a very, very key catalyst of growth in the zone. Just to touch on just a couple of benefits automatically that people who buy into and key into Alaro City tend to derive, also as being partaking of the benefits of the free zone. Just a couple of things. Number one, in terms of total rebates, in terms of no payment of VAT, in this case, at as high as 7.5%. So you get to up to 7.5% savings of VAT on all purchases made as a resident, as an industrial or commercial resident in Alaro City and in the free zone as a whole. You get up to as high as 32% in corporate income tax, which is a very, very big from a savings point of view. And we've seen these have been some of the motivations for a lot of companies who have come to buy into or key into Alaro City and the projects as a whole, as high as 25% savings on construction costs. Obviously, off the back of the savings that even some of the construction and suppliers within Alaro City are able to get in terms of rebates on corporate income tax, or in this case, total savings on corporate income tax and VAT. They're able to deliver services at a much lower rate to a lot of our off-takers here in Alaro City. Also, there are a couple of additional benefits in terms of flexible expatriate quotas, where, because of indigenization policies here in Nigeria, in what we call the customs territory, there are limitations to expatriate quotas and, for example, the number of expatriates that can work in your establishments. But in the free zone, there's literally flexibility in terms of expatriate quotas, speedy processing of goods, generally, obviously, with the new port coming on stream, that will even be quicker. And that in itself is a key factor, even for players in the import-export business and the value that derives, and obviously easy repatriation of funds is also important in the fact that you are able to, under a very differentiated export and also FX regime, you are also able to repatriate funds as the case may be. We also provide a one-stop shop for all engagements with every form of regulation as the case may be. So it's literally, we provide the services and we engage on behalf of our clients with all the requisite and all the different government agencies as the case may be. So coming very quickly to the core of the, and just had to set a bit of context as to who and what Alaro City is. I've spoken to the fact that it's a very well master planned city. At the moment, we're in the process of we've master planned the first 1,000 hectares. I won't speak to this in too much detail because I know that's the focus primarily of Garrett's presentation, but and I guess he'll do a lot of he'll give a lot more context to how well and the amount of effort that has gone into master planning the city. But it's just important to know that we're building a city, and it starts with the master planning and the intentionality with which we've gone at this. And the essence is really to ensure that it's a city that stays well planned and a city that works effectively for every single person, both our industrial and commercial clients, as well as our residential clients, bearing in mind that it's going to be a mixed use city. Moving into a couple of the highlights and some of the key things that I would like to touch on. It's also the fact that we are developing and deploying world-class infrastructure, literally unrivaled in any other industrial zone in Nigeria. And we beat our chest, and we're very proud to say this. And we're sparing no cost, and we're literally sparing nothing to ensure that we deliver on this ambition. That's the standard across all our projects, across all the different markets, and that's the standard we are committed to here as well. Also, we're very big on enforcing environmental friendly and socially responsible business practices. I will speak to this a bit as well in terms of our plans for sustainability when I get into infrastructure a couple of minutes. Also, we're very big on the communities in which our projects are situated, and we ensure that we have very strong relationships, both from a CSR point of view, as well as every other element of community relations, as the case will be. I've spoken to cheaper construction costs. We're also deploying state-of-the-art ICT infrastructure because it's part of my ambition. We've identified the fact that within the context of Nigeria, the tech ecosystem is gaining speed, as the case may be. And what we're looking to be is to be positioned as literally the Silicon Valley for that ecosystem, because we understand the need for top-notch infrastructure to be able to support the growth of that ecosystem. And Alaro City is well poised to deliver that. Also, I've spoken to proximity to all the different projects in and around Alaro City. And also, it's important to know that we have a clean and fully perfected title to our land. And in addition to of every form of security that will be available to your investment, as the case may be. Now, in terms of the current status, I've spoken to the fact that from an environmental point of view, we have been we've been given all the green marks, as the case may be. So it's a very, very environmentally safe environment, and we're also committed to the sustainability of Alaro City. Also, I've spoken to the master plan. It's already a well-awarded master plan. We've won a couple of awards alongside our partners, SOM, and I guess I'll leave Garrett to speak to that. I'm also proud to say that as a project that is just about 2 years going on 3, we already have a total of 53. This is actually a bit dated, 53 industrial commercial off-takers already in the project. And when we look at this from in a comparative sense here in this market, there's hardly any other project of our size, of our stature, that can boast of this. So we're averaging about an average of about 2, actually, an average of about 2 industrial commercial off-takers to our project literally every other month. And that in itself is one of the things we're extremely proud of. We also have well over 200 off-takers in terms of people who have bought into Alaro City in terms of residential plots. But in addition to this, we also have a project, a residential project called, in partnership with one of our partner entities, that is also building and providing for 576 apartments in Alaro City as well. And we're already having a lot of offtake on that. So well over 250, running into 300s in terms of already existing off-takers on the residential side. We've also deployed a lot in terms of road infrastructure, also sparing no cost in our engineering designs. We're very, very particular about how the city is going to run. And we're particular also about even very anal about things like, for example, our waterways, greenways, and how water generally is channeled in and around the city, some of which I will speak to in a couple of minutes. We also have, which we're very proud of, the main boulevard, which in itself at the moment is planned to be a 4.8 kilometer, 8-lane, 60-meter wide road in Alaro City, and is one of the largest privately owned roads in Africa, and it's going to be in our city. Literally, it's already under construction. I'll show you a couple of pictures in a couple of minutes. Well over leaning into about 20% construction, and we started construction literally this year, and in terms of the pace, we're very confident that the first phase of 2.5 kilometers should be developed and ready this year. It's currently being constructed by Cranberg, a leading global construction firm, and in partnership with an engineering consultant called Alaro as well. And obviously, a lot of deployments of state-of-the-art electrical and mechanical infrastructure is also in progress across the city. So generally, in terms of electrical reticulation across the city is in a very advanced stages and levels. Also, I'd spoken to the fact that we already have quite a number of off-takers in the city, some of which are who we call our anchor tenant, Aerial Foods. Aerial Foods actually was a referral from our office in Kenya, and that also speaks to the cross-pollination from all our different projects. Aerial Foods was the first tenant in Alaro City. So this is literally showing you their structure and their fully operational factory in Alaro City at the moment, sitting on about 28,000 square meters. They are into the production of therapeutic, ready-to-use therapeutic foods, and have off-takers in the World Health Organization and quite a number of other global organizations. And it's one of our biggest clients, and we're very proud to have them with us. We also have HMD Africa, who is one of the key suppliers and providers of heavy-duty machinery in and around Africa. And these are one of our key clients as well. Also have a fully built structure already operating in Alaro City and are fully commercial in Alaro City. We also have Sterium, who is also a member of the Boa Group. Boa Group locally is one of the biggest FMCG players in market, and they're building a detergent factory in Alaro City, from which they'll be doing a lot of exportation as well as distribution in and around Nigeria, all the way through to the north from Alaro City. And we also have quite a number of other players. Mantra Caterpillar, a global player as well in the heavy duty machinery space, also in Alaro City, currently developing their plots. Sana Group, also sitting on about 43,000 square meters of land, and quite a number of others who are also in Alaro City. I'll focus on this slide. After I'll just show you a couple of pictures and I'll round up as I'm conscious of my time. I've spoken to road infrastructure already, and just to recap the fact that in total, we are in the process of deploying a total of well over 6 kilometers of road in the initial phase of road infrastructure rollout in and around Alaro City, one of which is what we call the activation road, or Road 1. I'll show you a couple of pictures in a couple of minutes. The main boulevard, which I spoke about, which is one of the largest roads in West Africa, one of the largest privately owned roads in Africa, which is also in Alaro City, and a couple of others also in terms of residential access roads, which are also being deployed in and around Alaro City. In terms of electricity, we have made provision for 24 hours power supply, which is a big deal here in Lagos, Nigeria, and in our access. And bearing in mind the fact that we are catering to a city, we have a modular approach to rolling out our infrastructure in and around Alaro City as has to do with our power. Currently at a scalable 2.5 MVA, we're scaling all the way to about, in terms of capacity, as high as 50 MVA. In terms of our overall and overarching ambitions for electricity and power. And we have a mix of thermal powered sources, in this case, mostly fossil fuels, and obviously in terms of gas, which is a definitely cleaner power source. And in addition to that, we also have sustainable power options, in this case being solar power, as it were. And it's really a power mix that ensures that we are trying to, as much as is possible, balance the emission levels here at Alaro City and ensure that it's a generally sustainable environment. I spoke to gas as well, which we are also able to provide on a retail basis to citizens within Alaro City. We also have a fully centralized sewage and waste water management system. I've spoken to ICT already in terms of our current rollout of dark fiber infrastructure and cables all around the city to ensure that we have next to none in terms of the quality of the infrastructure, the ICT infrastructure deployed. In terms of water as well, we also have a modular approach to phasing our water deployment, but in terms of what it is that we're able to provide, we're able to cater to a very broad audience, even as I speak currently. I'm talking about our industrial commercial clients, a lot of them being factories from an industrial point of view. And you can imagine the water consumption, which we're able to provide and meet on a daily basis. We also have a city management infrastructure, which has been put in place to ensure that the general management of the city is not left unattended. And in terms of that large framework, it would cover everything from provision of security to street lighting, landscaping, water management, janitorial services, and the general management of the city on a day-to-day basis. And this is just to ensure that this city is planned from the beginning and stays planned all the way. Just to show you a couple of pictures, real-life pictures, just to show you where we are at Alaro City. This is the activation road, a fully deployed road. This is currently at 1.4 kilometers of road, as I spoke to you about earlier. These are just a couple of pictures of our water treatment plants. For all our roads and for basically all our roads, we're also very big on sustainability, as I said. And on all our roads, we're making provision for cycling lanes because we also want to ensure that generally we're encouraging a lifestyle, a sustainable lifestyle, even within the city. And we also have rain gardens, which is one of the little tactical infrastructure deployments that we have across the city to ensure that water is generally collected from the surface and run through greenways, which I hope Gareth will speak about when he talks about the general master planning and how generally water is channeled out of the city to ensure that at no point in time is there ever an issue of flooding. I'll just show you just a couple of pictures of the greenways just here. We also have a fully functional helipad. On the right, I've spoken to you about the main boulevard as well, which is currently under construction. The first phase of 2.5 kilometers currently under construction. And these are just a couple of pictures, just to give you a bit of context as to how large it is. And as I said, it's 8 lanes, 60 meters wide, also has storm drainages and cycling lanes all through. And if you can see just a small picture of a render, just give you a sense of what this will look like when it's fully built and developed. We also have, as I talked to you earlier, we have a total of 53 industrial commercial clients already in Alaro City, and we have well over 250, probably leaning more towards 300 in terms of residential clients in Alaro City. And this is just a snapshot of a couple of pictures. And on that note, I would just like to say thank you, and I guess we'll take questions after the session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Yomi. Next up is our presenter, Gareth, who is from SOM, Skidmore, Owens, and Merrill Wright. And he is going to talk about a little bit more on the planning architectural side. So without further ado, Gareth.
Great. Hello, everyone. You can, oops, sorry, you can see my screen. Great. Right, as Teresa said, my name is Gareth Edwards. I'm an associate principal within the city design practice at SOM, Skidmore, Owings, and Merrill. And I'll talk about some of the qualitative aspects of Alaro City, where we really see the city as a model community, perhaps one that other West African and sub-Saharan developments could use as a model development where people work, make, and live and learn all together within this master plan city. Just quickly about who SOM is. They've got a large presence in Chicago, so I'm sure a lot of people have maybe heard of them on this call today, but they're a pioneer of new capabilities. We look at each design problem uniquely and as a challenge, and the challenges within that design problem as opportunities for unique solutions. We're all about creating new identities and new with the placemaking that comes out within our master plans, and that we're really tied a lot of our master plans in developing and established economies are about realizing new opportunities through the economies that are emerging within those areas. We've got offices around the world, and we're a network and a collective of designers with around 1,400 people. And our group as city designers and master planners is really, our mission is really to build livable, sustainable, and resilient cities. And this is what we've really tried to bring to this project, Alaro City. We've got this template of different principles where we look to address different aspects of sustainability, from ecology to heritage and identity and water. And you'll see some of these in this presentation on Alaro City that I give. Yeah, we work around the world, and my connection to this project basically goes back to 2017 when we started engaging in the sort of blue sky thinking and the what if scenarios within this Lekki free trade zone. Just to say and touch on what Yomi was mentioning earlier, we've worked on a number of projects with Rendeavor in this region. Alaro City being one of them, and probably one of the longest running ones as well. If we just talk about scale though quickly to calibrate people's minds around this this master plan, if we look at the City of London, maybe some of you have been there, and we overlay Alaro City onto it, you can see that's the third one along. You can see the scale of this endeavor. It's quite big, and the quadrant of development that it sits within is even bigger. So there's a lot of, as we go through the master planning exercise, we're cognizant of its size, but then also of the master plan aspirations around it. And this was one of our initial visualizations of this wider Lekki free trade zone with this northwest quadrant that is Alaro City, outlined in the dashed red line there. So before diving into the specifics, I'll just talk about some of the principles, a snapshot of some of the principles we try to address and follow in our work in this region. We really take our initial cues and inspiration when we look at the blank sheet of paper in front of us as we start master plans from the land. We make sure that we work with the existing ecosystems, water, vegetation, what have you, to bring about a development that works with and in harmony with these natural systems. We also are cognizant of the urban migration that's happening in these regions and how more people are migrating to cities. And so we understand the role and the challenge for us to create this vibrant destination to attract people and to have them want to be there, both to live and work. Looking at the demographics of the population, we understand there's a young population within Nigeria and Lagos who are eager to become something, work and live, and have got aspirations for the future. And we're really tapping into that and acknowledging that within our master planning moves within this project. Okay, now I'll just talk a bit more specifically about Alaro City. As Yomi mentioned, it's part of the Lekki Free Trade Zone, connected by this highway to Lagos and adjacent to this new airport. Alaro City itself is seen as a mixture of residential, industrial, and commercial, and fits into a wider vision for this northwest quadrant, as they call it, that has a similar mix of uses. And this Alaro City is really one of the first parts of this wider master plan that's underway and is really seen as a catalyst for the wider district, delivering up to 250,000 jobs in the future. And these jobs range from high-tech jobs to light industrial to research and development. And we've been planning for these flexibility within the master plan in terms of the land use allocation and the plot size to adjust to the changing marketplace and trends within the Nigerian economy and the Lagos economy as well. Speaking about the site, it's really a lush ecosystem between two lagoons. And this really set the tone and the approach to the master plan with these north-south greenways running through the development, channeling water, stormwater to the lagoons, but also creating this open space amenity for residents and workers to use and take advantage of. So these greenways are multifunctional. They talk about water conservation and conveyance, but also offer this sense of lifestyle trails and connections through to the lagoons and through to other communities. Here's a rendering of one of these that could also have cultural institutions or civic buildings tied into them. The master plan actually tries to arrange schools and civic amenities adjacent to these greenways. If we look at the land use plan quickly here, you can see these purple and light blue colors to the south. That talks to the industrial, logistics, and R&D component of the master plan. Whereas to the north, you've got these communities centered, residential communities around these, located around or organized around these 5-minute walking radii. And in the middle, the large collection of red is really the CBD, the mixed use heart of Alaro City. Yeah, so just talking maybe in a bit more broad brush terms of what I just mentioned there, the master plan is centered along this east-west urban boulevard that brings together the livable neighborhoods to the north and the more R&D light industry moments to the south, the campuses, the working campuses, which then tie into this logistics spine along the south. And each one of these land uses has got their own plot typology and building typology that we've been working closely with Alaro City to fine tune and adjust to market conditions. But and these help give guidance to people who are buying the plots, and potentially also understanding how they can subdivide some of these larger plots if required. The area to the north, Alaro North, as I mentioned, is really for the livable communities, these walkable communities centered around 5-minute walks that get planned out in different phases. The north-south greenways act as convenient phasing lines between each one of these phases. And we've just actually finished an exercise with Alaro City on phase 3. These livable communities really come together around a central park, the central open space amenity that serves as both an open space, but as also part of the stormwater retention and filtering system. And in the drier seasons, the water recedes, allowing for amphitheaters and play spaces within some of the wet zones. But then during the wet period, these areas flood and create lakes and lagoons, and then the water is released once the flood risk is over. This is another view of that Central Park area. And as we've been refining the master plan, as I mentioned, it's a large area, so it undergoes refinements as we move along and different phases come online. We've been looking at how to create more value for the plots around this central area by placing higher density, creating different development opportunities, and also giving a sense of place and address for this central park. Looking at the plots to the south, the industrial and logistics and R&D areas, these larger plots, we see that these are campus types developments. And we've, within our guidelines and within the master plan vision, we've created places that really bring together different uses and create these environments to foster collaboration between different institutions and some of the manufacturing and light industry uses. So yeah, and some of these warehouses could be used for prototyping of new technologies in conjunction with educational institutions or some of the other manufacturing uses that are companies that are showing up on the site. So the goal really of Alaro City, and Yomi touched on this, is to offer high quality jobs for the young up and coming populace in manufacturing and logistics and innovation, where these people in this new population can also live and play and recreate within this master plan as well. If we look at one of the typical communities or living districts, residential communities, as I mentioned, it's focused around this plus or minus 400-meter radius circle. That's a 5-minute walk to the neighborhood center. And on either side of this is this greenway corridor. So it's about creating these compact neighborhood amenities, avoiding any notion of urban sprawl to create these vibrant, livable areas. And yes, each one has access to open spaces and nature to allow them to recreate and come together in public open spaces. this area has got half an eye, of course, on the future and is looking to relevant and applicable technologies in new infrastructure coming online, whether that be autonomous vehicles, electric charging points, transit networks, etc. So we've been balancing these different aspirations with the reality on the ground as we move forward. Of course, everyone's talking about carbon at the moment, so we're trying to employ as many passive design strategies to minimize energy usage within the buildings that as we can. This is a view down the boulevard, that urban boulevard, bringing together the residential living component on the left-hand side of the screen with the more R&D, logistics, and light industrial area on the right of the screen. There's an aspiration to have and a design ambition to have transport running along this major urban boulevard to minimize the reliance on the private car and use of fossil fuels. Also within these urban moments are these great walkable neighborhoods where people can come together to recreate and meet up and exchange ideas and just go out. So with that, I think I'm finished, Teresa.
Awesome, thank you. Apologies that I didn't go through your bios, but you did a great job introducing yourselves. And at this time, if anyone has any questions, go ahead and put in the Q&A. I know I certainly have a few questions that I would like to ask. It is still being recorded. We'll take the recording off once we're done with the Q&A session. One of my questions was, in this development, what are some challenges that you encountered that you were not expecting?
Well, Yomi, do you want to answer that?
Either Gareth or Yomi, have any thoughts?
Well, I think as Garrett has said, it's in the entire process of master planning, it's a living document, as we like to call it. Some of the challenges may have been around a bit around topography, where in certain instances we've had to make slight moderations to some of the initial plans, either because some of the original assumptions around topography, by the time we started going into core engineering design and planning, we may have, in some instances, noticed the need to, in some instances, pivot slightly. But I would say we've not had anything too drastic or anything too major. We're excited to say that we have very, very good community relations. So nothing on that level. So if at all anything, it's really been purely from a topography and how that has sort of informed slight modifications, especially from an execution point of view every now and then. But nothing we've not been able to surmount. Obviously, there are a bit of, obviously the pressures from let's call them larger macro pressures, as it has to do, for example, with foreign exchange, which are some of the realities we're faced with, and how that sort of has impacts on the cost of rolling out the speed and the level of infrastructure that we are committed to rolling out. But either way, we're committed to it and we're pushing all the same, regardless of the headwinds. But I would say beyond those, nothing drastic, nothing that we've not been able to live up to or take a punch on the chin with or for. Yeah.
I'm also curious how you are marketing out to businesses and potential residents that would live there. So like what's the marketing plan?
Okay, thank you. So for marketing, it's for lack of a better way to put it, it's probably a three-tier approach. There's obviously number one, there's a focus, let me call it a three-pronged nuanced approach, right? Three core targets, one being industrial and commercial clients for whom the motivation to move to Alaro City is somewhat different from the residential clients, as the case may be. And for them, it's really marketing the benefits of being situated in Alaro City, how they're able to maximize the benefits of the free trade zone, and how the Alaro City's, where Alaro City is situated sort of is a perfect hub for logistics and distribution and whatnot. And that in itself is sort of at the heart of the marketing approach for the industrial and commercial. But as it has to do with residential, it's a slightly different motivation. It's really a city that works. And obviously in this part, that's a statement you can't take for granted. It's really a city that works. And that in itself is a very major selling point for those who are bought into the city. It's literally a city that works from a security point of view, from an infrastructure point of view, very, very state-of-the-art infrastructure, not very popular or regular in these parts, and being able to buy and key into a city of the future in the now is one of the major incentives, and we're seeing a lot of uptick on that front. The third and last nuance approach is from a diaspora approach. One of the reasons why we're so excited about this opportunity to speak to a bit of a diaspora audience, because we also understand that there's a lot of opportunity for people to come into our market. And Alaro City just serves as a perfect entry point. Bearing in mind that the regime, in terms of the free trade zone regime, and how it generally benefits investors who want to come into Nigeria. As a matter of fact, the free trade zone is literally an engine to attract foreign direct investment. So there's a lot of focus on the diaspora, both in terms of, when I say diaspora, in this case, Nigerians in the diaspora on one side, but even beyond that, also the larger investing publics across the world, in the Americas and Europe and every other part of the world.
Thank you. Again, if anyone else has any questions, please type it in the Q&A. Another question I had is, so at this point, is everything for sale and then they have can choose a lease? Like, how is the dynamics of for sale, leasing, et cetera, working?
Well, so at the moment we have let me say we have a nuanced approach as well as with everything. Primarily, our primary approach is obviously it's more of a we're selling a lot of the actual property and landmass in Alaro City. Garrett had alluded to the fact that we have different land uses, and with each land use, we have different densities and requirements, both on the residential side and commercial industrial sides, respectively. And we're selling along those lines. But in addition to that, he had alluded to a logistics hub or a sub-quadrant in the southern part of Alaro City, where we're also exploring the possibility. When I say that, I'm speaking in advanced terms. Where in advanced talks also provide, for lack of better put it, rental services of logistics services. We're talking in terms of warehousing, cold storage and whatnot, where you do not necessarily have to buy or acquire property in Alaro City, but you can also buy services in terms of large scale services from warehousing, logistics and whatnot. So it's a dual model that we're also employing. There's also another element I may not be able to speak about right now, but also leveraging technology as well to look to how we can also evolve the way and manner in which Alaro City is sold. So really it's a multifaceted approach. But at the moment, I'll say the two major elements in this case are number one, on one end, is really in terms of land sales on the basically retailing land, in this case on industrial commercial front, as well as on the residential. And secondly, in terms of having bespoke infrastructure that we are able to rent out on an off-taker arrangement to interested parties who would want to have hubs or leverage hubs in Alaro City without actually buying and acquiring property. And we're seeing a lot of uptake on that front as well with quite a number of our clients.
And one of the questions coming from the audience is talking about power, because you talked about some of the sources of power, but she was mentioning that there are security issues and power issues there. So what is the percentages of power use? Is there solar farm plans? Can you speak a little bit more on the power side?
Okay. So on the power side, I will speak to an extent, obviously, because I would say I'm a subject matter expert, but not the 100% subject matter expert on that. But as it has to do with power, yes, as you rightly said, I've spoken to a mix of thermal and sustainable power options in terms of on one end fossil fuels, primarily diesel power generators, and another being in this case gas, and thirdly solar. Because I think I can also see the question you're asking about the mix. The mix I may not be able to speak to specifically, but definitely we're trying to ensure that we index higher on cleaner energy sources. So definitely indexing a lot higher on gas and solar as against core fossil fuels. And obviously with the recent experiences in Nigeria, you agree with me that fossil fuels in themselves have been a bit, there's a bit of price volatility, a bit of availability volatility, and obviously that has obviously even spurred us even more to look more in the direction of the sustainable power options for the mere fact that they're a lot more sustainable. In terms of solar, which you asked specifically as whether we have a solar farm. So it's still in terms of the deployment or rollout of our infrastructure. It's an ongoing process, and definitely culminating in a proper solar farm. What we also have, we have arrangements with all our off-takers where we have rental space arrangements with them to deploy solar panels on all the roofs of all the key industrial and or even residential developments across the city on a rental basis. And the purpose of that is also to be able to ensure that we have a very wide expanse in terms of solar collection points and how that obviously is deployed, channeled from a generation point of view all the way through to transmission across the city. So while I may not be able to speak to the exact mixes, what I can assure you is that we're indexing higher and focusing a lot more on how we can generally ensure that our sustainable power options and our cleaner power options are definitely in place. We have literally a gas terminal that right in front of the city from which you can draw gas, and that comes all the way. And also bearing in mind that with the refinery, which is also in the same axis, we also want to believe that there will be easier access to a lot of these options. So I hope that answers that question.
Okay, we have a few more audience questions. Ahmed has a question, and then we're going to wrap up for the networking portion. What is currently for sale, and what are some price points, for example, for residential units?
Okay, good question. So we currently have starting with the residential side, we have three major property scales for sale. We have the low density, the low density properties for sale. We just and those start at about $125 per square meter. There's a minimum requirement of 500 square meters for the low density. Garrett had spoken about the densities, which in themselves are a way, a manner in which we classify even the type of building structures and quite a number of the other design principles that go into what can be built and what can be, and the way and manner in which things can be built in various densities. We also have the medium density plots, which start at about between 500 to 750 square meters as well, averaging about starting at about $135 per square meter. And then we have the high density plots, which in themselves you are allowed to build a lot higher in terms of the number of floors. I think about 6 floors, if I'm not mistaken. And those start at a minimum of 1,000 square meters at $155 per square meter. We also have what we call the mixed use, what Garrett referred to as more like the CBD, which are properties that you can acquire, which are a mix of which can be a mix of residential and commercial buildings, and those start at about $165 per square meter. For industrial and commercial, we have a range, and the range is because it's dependent on the exact precise location. For example, Garrett had referred or had made reference to the Central Park and how certainly the establishments and the plots that will be sold around the Central Park will be priced differently from some other portions. Also, the plots that will also be on either side of the main boulevard, which I'd spoken about in terms of the 2.5 kilometer first phase road, would also be priced differently. But we have a range at the moment of between $165 per square meter all the way through to about $200 per square meter for our industrial and commercial plots. So that's sort of the mix. But if there's any, we're very open to sharing details as well as price proposals, which can also be shared across to all attendees at a later point, and definitely contact details if you'd like to engage a bit further.
Awesome. I'm going to ask one more question from the audience, and then Ahmed is going to ask his question. If both of you could please, or actually everyone, please put your contact information in the chat, and especially Yomi and Gareth, in case people have questions, further questions about the development, or where they should direct any questions, whether it be pricing, etc. So another question that came up is about security and how what your focus or what you're doing to address security, and how is that different from the neighboring areas?
Okay, thank you. A very, very good question, especially against the backdrop of insecurity in parts of the country. So what, as Alaro City, we have let me put it this way, we have a multi-layered approach to security, and it's a mix of private security as well as public security services available to us, in this case armed and unarmed security, from the police, from the Department of State Security as well, DSS as it's called here, as well as a full-on private security system that we also have deployed fully here at Alaro City. So to a very large extent, as much as it's humanly possible, I would say that the city is very, very, very well secured. We've had no incidents of any security breaches even up to date. Another very important thing for us is around the community and how we are managing and working very closely with the community. Community relations in itself has really helped in the fact that a lot of the community sees Alaro City as a part of the community. And what we tend to find is, because we're also one of the highest employers of labor within the community, is the fact that the community in itself is almost, in a sense, is almost a larger security apparatus even for Alaro City. So in terms of the protection of the city and every other thing in between, we also enjoy the benefits of that. So I'll say that as it has to do with security, it's a mix that is in itself we feel very confident in and with. And we, for lack of better put it, with almost everything in Alaro City, as it has to infrastructure and everything else, we also have redundancies. What I always say is that I'm not sure that anybody really goes about telling you the scale of their security apparatus, but I'll just say that it won't be advisable for anyone to test it. But yeah, I'll put it that way.
Thank you very much. Ahmed, you had a question?
Yes. Quick question. I know we've used Yomi for a lot of questions. I'm going to go to Garrett. Garrett, so when a client comes to you on a project of this nature, do you have any say in the type, or looking at the land itself, do you have a role in when the choice is made that this is where we want to be, or you just continue from where it's already been made?
You mean the suitability or the developability of a particular terrain?
Exactly.
Yeah. I think, well, those greenways were actually some of the lower points. Yomi talked about the topography issues, and that was an unknown things being that on the ground construction workers have sort of had to adjust to. Yeah, we talk about developability, setbacks from river corridors or steep slopes, the nature of the soil, and the percentage of open space. Yeah, so we do have an opinion on these. The spacing and the alignment of these greenways aren't like a pure rectilinear arrangement. They were actually guided by the lowest points and the swampiest grounds, where the water was already flowing to. So we used those we sort of worked with what we had there. It's always a balance to figure out the best way to proceed between the developer's aspirations and how that fits into their pro forma, and then the what makes sense from a civil engineering and constructability standpoint. But yeah, there's always that dialogue, and we had that dialogue in this development. It's actually the reason why the Central Park is located where it is as well, as one of the major catchment points. The realignment of there was a slight dip now in the boulevard because the initial survey hadn't picked up some nuances in the topography. So that was what Yomi had alluded to there, in terms of yeah. And I mean, it's very rare where sometimes in our global work we'll say this is not achievable, but a lot of our clients have done a first round of due diligence with regards to the developability and the suitability of a particular piece of land on a master plan.
Thank you, Garrett.
Thank you very much, Gareth and Yomi, for that really great presentation, and Benga for giving that intro. This has been super helpful for people to kind of understand a project outside of what they're used to. Of course, you know, we don't always have this opportunity to build a city from scratch. So it's nice to have that forward thinking, whether it be power, security, land development, and what is the best use and how to make it work for everyone, both businesses, residents, etc. So it's great to see this development in progress, and hopefully everyone has been able to put their information in the chat. This was a recorded session. We will put it on YouTube. If you have any further questions and you didn't find it in the chat, feel free to reach out to myself, Teresa Mueller, or Ahmed. And I understand we're going to try to move to the networking session. If for some reason we're having difficulties, they will put a Zoom link in the chat. Otherwise, we will be ending the recording here. And so again, thank you everyone for coming and participating, and Gareth and Yomi for these really great presentations. I could tell you put a lot of work into presenting to the world. What a great achievement you have going forward.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.